Oh, nope, that ain't good. Too much. There we go. Hey everybody, Yankee here. Tonight I want to talk about all the information that's going around that suggests that the manufacturers of suppressors intentionally killed the Hearing Protection Act to protect their own profits. I want to talk about, does this make any sense? Is this just cover for the Republicans? Or are these companies traitors to the Second Amendment? Like a lot of other YouTubers the other day, I did a video talking about how the Republicans completely betrayed the gun community at the last minute by removing all the anti-NFA language from the budget reconciliation bill. There had been a lot of talk about how all this stuff was going to be in there. They were giving a good lip service, and then at the last minute, they pulled it. Now, a lot of people are talking about how the main reason they did that is because the manufacturers of suppressors spent a lot of money and whispered in a lot of ears to get that taken out of the bill because they did not want suppressors taken off of the NFA. They wanted you to still have to go through the tax stamp process, etc., to get them. Now, does that make sense? A lot of people will say, well, this is just cover for the politicians so that they don't have to take the heat. But, I think it does make sense, even though a lot of people say it doesn't because, if they were off the NFA, the market would open wide up and more people would buy suppressors. And that's true. More people would buy suppressors. A lot more people. And I think that's actually the problem for these suppressor manufacturers. Because right now, with the market as small as it is and controlled as it is and how you need a special license to manufacture them and everything else, there's just not enough of a market out there for a lot of manufacturers to really mass produce them because there's not a big enough number of sales. If they were taken off the NFA, these manufacturers would suddenly be facing a lot of competition because if you no longer needed a special license and people were buying them by the dozens now, you would be able to mass produce them, sell a lot more, and they'd be a lot cheaper. That's one of the reasons I believe this because here's the thing. They might make good profit off of them now, but that's because they charge, $1,000 for a suppressor. And a suppressor is just some baffles in a tube. It's not really that much more complicated than a car muffler. And if you spent $100 on a car muffler, you got ripped off. But people are paying $1,000, $1,500, even more sometimes for suppressors. Now, I know they put a lot of effort sometimes in making the outsides look cool, but you're usually basically the same technology inside. And it's not impressive technology. It's simple technology. Anybody with a 3D printer could reproduce it. Anybody with simple manufacturing skills could reproduce them. And we've seen that. We've seen kits and stuff from overseas that are super cheap and work just fine. So if the market opened up, if these came off the NFA, these items would now not be worth $1,000. Not only would they lose some of their sales because there'd be so many other brands to buy, they would not be able to charge $1,000 a piece for them. Even if they kept every customer they've ever had and got more, they'd probably make less profit overall because instead of selling 10 units at $1,000 each, they'd sell 50 units at $200 each, and they'd make no more profit. In fact, they'd make less profit because they were spending more on manpower and materials. There would just be too much competition to maintain that high price. And there'd be lots of other people just cranking them out, selling them cheap, making them accessible to everyone. That would really damage these companies. So I believe 100% that they did this. Now, there's a lot of people in the gun community now that are claiming they know who did it. They know who did this, but they can't say anything. They won't say anything. And that, to me, right there is a perfect example of why you don't want people that are supposedly 2A advocates being involved in the industry. Because the reason they won't say anything is so they don't lose sponsorship, so they don't lose money. And not just from the suppressor companies. You might say, well, suppressor companies don't spend a lot. Yeah, but if other manufacturers say, oh, well, these people, when it came push to shove, they took the side of the people and not the side of the industry. I don't want them on my payroll. So I would say right now, anybody that says they have information as to who it is, but they won't name names, don't watch their channel ever again. They're obviously a shill for the industry. Tell them, put up, shut up, or just go away. because that's bullshit. If you have information that a company worked actively against the Second Amendment and against the gun community, spill it or shut your mouth. I definitely wouldn't listen to those people ever again. Because like I said, that's a perfect example of why you don't want advocacy to be tied to industry. Because it ruins the advocacy. You can't be an advocate and a paid shill for industry. Because what's good for industry is usually not what's good for the people or the Second Amendment. But like I was saying, they won't say who it is, but a lot of people are saying it now. And to be honest, the person that the group that it looks like it is it looks like it's the silencer shop. I will say that openly. Because here's the thing, they didn't spend any money on lobbying like 2 years prior to 2024. Not a dime. But then in 2024, when all this was happening, they spent a ton. A lot of money. And then a lot of money still in 2025, and we're just a short time into it. We're not all the way through 2025 yet. So you got to think, why were they suddenly spending all this money when it looked like this stuff was being done? The GOA and some other groups were getting this stuff done. They were getting these taken off. The market was going to open up to them. Well, it looks to me like they sat down and went, yeah, the market's going to open up to everybody. We're going to have to price these competitively, and there's going to be a whole lot more people selling them. So we're probably going to have a hard time keeping up the profits we're making right now. And they said, that's not in our best interest, so let's spend some money to lobby. Let's get this taken out of the bill. Instead, let's lower the price of the tax stamp. That way, the manufacturing licensing stays the same. The difficulty of getting it stays the same. Everything stays the same. They stay in business. They stay exclusive. Not a whole lot of people still buy suppressors because here's the thing. A lot of people, when they go out now and buy suppressors, one of the things about them being so expensive is it makes the tax stamp look like it's not a big deal. If the suppressor itself is $1,200, another $200 for a tax stamp is not that big a deal. And the reason people choose not to do it isn't because of the $200. It's because of the paperwork, the process, and registering something with the government when you shouldn't have to. That's why they don't do it. So even if you lowered the price to $5 or even $0, as long as people still had to fill out the paperwork, you'd still have the same number of people doing it. And plus, if you lowered the price of suppressors and the ticket was still $200 for the tax, you'd have some people that would be like, well, I'm not paying $200 tax on a $200 item. So that's another thing that keeps a lot of companies out of the business. They're like, we could produce suppressors right now, sell them for $200 or $300. But then people be like, well, I'm not paying a $200 tax on a $200 or $300 item. I'm going to get this $1,000 one because it's obviously a lot better. But if they didn't have to go through the process, people would be like, well, I'll take the chance on the $300 one if I can just buy it and walk out with it today. That would also hurt the business model of these bigger manufacturers. So as I said, right now it looks like it's silencer shop. That's awfully suspicious. They are definitely under the microscope for this. And if they want to sue me for saying this, well, sue me. Well, then we can do some discovery and we can see who were you paying that lobbying to? What was the purpose? What are your internal memos on that stuff? And if it turns out you didn't, I'll gladly come on here and say I was totally wrong. They're awesome. But right now, we don't know who did it. As far as I'm concerned, until we do, until other people in the industry stand up or other YouTubers stand up and say, these are the ones that did it, so we know who to hold responsible, I'm not buying a single suppressor. Now, that's not a huge threat for me because I don't buy suppressors anyway. I've got 3 of them, never taken them out of the box. The only one that's come out of the box is the 22 that my son took out and is using it. Which is fine because he's on the trust. But I would not, if I was you, I would not buy a suppressor, period, until we know which one of these bastards, sabotaged this legislation. Wouldn't trust any of them. They need to come out, tell us who's who, point fingers, let us know who's responsible. Until then, they're all responsible. Every one of them is likely to have done it. Maybe they all did it together. Now, I'm not someone who likes to call for boycotts because I'm like, it's your choice whether you buy something or not, and it should be up to you to decide you don't want to support someone. But I will tell you that I will not support any of these silencer companies, not a single one of them, until we know who sold us out. And right now, like I said, a lot of people won't name names because they're worried about checks stopping coming in. But until they do, don't watch their channels. Let them see, oh my God, my viewership just dropped in half. Or, oh my God, people just unsubbed from me because I pulled this bullshit of saying, yeah, this company did it, but I'm not going to tell you who they are. Let them suffer that. Maybe then they'll loosen their lips up a little bit. Don't buy the products. And then maybe the companies themselves will say, we are not the ones who did this. We have good evidence that it was this company that did this. And then you can buy their products instead of the company that did it. The very fact that they're all silent means probably either they don't know anything or they're complicit. So like I said, I don't call for boycotts, but I wouldn't buy a suppressor for anything right now. This is a huge betrayal. I wouldn't ever vote for a Republican again until these people start doing what they promised they're going to do. I'm not going to vote for a Democrat either. I'm going to vote third party like I have been for years. But send these people messages, the politicians, the manufacturers, their mouthpieces. You pull shit like this, we're going to make sure it hurts you. And right now, it ain't hurting them. Because people don't pay attention, people don't do anything about it, people just let it slide off their back, and nothing ever changes. We don't get our rights back because the politicians know you'll accept their garbage, the manufacturers know they can get away with whatever they want to, and the mouthpieces keep shilling for the people that pay them. So like I said, if you want things to change, stand up and make a choice and make a difference through who you choose not to spend your money with and who you choose not to waste your time watching. A lot of people are saying, well, this might just be covered for the politicians because does it really... God damn, my foot is itching.